As you know, it is Minority Mental Health Month awareness, and our Millennial moguls for this week are 5 women who created a nonprofit called Sisters Supporting Sisters, where they manage and raise awareness for mental health within their community, while also remaining vigorous leaders within it. If you would like more information, you can find them on Instagram at Sisters Supporting Sisters. And lastly, thank you to the 5 women who are doing an amazing work in their community.
Welcome back to Millennial Thoughts with Alicia
and Catherine.
Yes, we are so excited. We have another guest with us to talk all things money. You may know her from Instagram as the Capital Woman, but we have Melissa on the podcast, and we are so excited for her to come and talk with us today. Hey, Melissa.
Hi, guys. So excited to be here.
Yes, thank you so much. Can you just tell some of our listeners just a little bit about you and your money journey, or how you even started the Capital Woman?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So I'm Melissa. I was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, kind of the lower middle class family. So as you can imagine, I wasn't really taught, all things financial literacy, not because we don't value that, but a lot of our parents don't know, right? So that's one of the things that inspired me kind of coming up, just kind of watching everybody around me struggle a little bit with the management of money. It wasn't always that we didn't have a lot coming in, but it's like, when you have money, what do you do with it, right? Like, how do you leverage the resources around you to kind of grow wealth? So once I got to college, I was just kind of out there on my own. I went to school in Atlanta. And I didn't have a whole lot of family. Yeah, shout out to the A, Yeah, so I was out there by myself, and I didn't have a whole lot of support financially. And so I worked 2 jobs, mostly all throughout college. And I actually started building my credit in college, because one of the things my mom did teach me coming up was that credit was important. Now, I didn't know the components of it and how to build it, but she told me, make sure you make your payments on time, right? So that was the one little nugget I had, and I was like, I'm running with that. And I had a friend in college, actually, that she had a credit card, and she was like, she had a good experience with that. It was a credit union, actually. And so I decided to open a credit card with them. And I was like, I'm about to master this credit thing, because if I don't have cash, I need to be able to have, some type of access to something to make sure I can eat, I can, live just a regular life in school. So that's kind of the spark for why I decided to learn more about financial literacy, and why I'm now, I consider myself a financial advocate for Black people.
Okay, I like that.
Yes.
What did you go to school for?
I went to school for finance.
Okay.
Yeah, so I studied it. They don't teach you personal finance, really. It's a lot of like useless information, to be quite honest. It's like you learn a little bit about investing, but not really. It's not really applicable, and I think especially for the Black community, because we're starting from a different place. You know what I'm saying? Yes. So it's like we need it broken down almost to like the foundational level, because we just didn't start off that way. You know what I'm saying? So a lot
even
of it,
like introduction. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yes. No, exactly. Exactly.
I see what you're saying.
So how did you go about like being able to find all these resources for the personal finance, since you weren't taught about it in school? So how did you go about looking for that?
YouTube University. I didn't have a whole lot of people I could like talk to about it necessarily. So I spent a lot of time like researching stuff on YouTube. One of the other things is Google. Like I Googled all my questions, and then I would just try different things and see what worked for me. It wasn't until I launched my brand that I started finding other financial advocates in the space for Black people. And once I started finding them, I was like, oh, wow, like I'm not the only person that's like really excited about this and want to share it. And so I'm learning from peers as well, people that are like also millennials, Black women. And so there's kind of a community of us that we learn from each other, and we also try to teach other people. So really I started with just YouTube and Google.
I feel that when I'm like, we paying these schools, the student loan, we need to be paying YouTube. Basically, they should get all our money because that's where everybody be going for everything.
Exactly. And when I graduated college, I was like, okay, this student loan debt, that kicked it into a whole nother gear.
Come on, yes. Say it. I see your
Yes.
thing. It was like I graduated $50,000, but I'm
Exactly.
still rich. I was like, yes, I feel that one. That's something that we're talking about too, is student loan debt and different things like that. And so I know you call yourself the capital woman. How did you even come up with that?
Ooh, I love that question. Okay, so um it is really hard to be creative with the name because you want it to be catchy, you want it to make sense. And so I was kind of like being really I'm very like paranoid that people are gonna like steal something that I have or like use something that I have. And so I wanted something really unique that I could trademark. And so I was just researching different terms for money, different, synonyms for this, synonyms for that. Like, okay, what can I call myself? Like, so I went through all this. And capital, to me, I'm also like a feminist. Like I care a whole lot about women empowerment.
Yes, same here.
I love it.
Yes, girl. Like that's huge for me. So capital woman is kind of like a play on words because capital obviously is money, right? So like it fits in with that. But capital woman, if you think about the woman being capitalized, putting emphasis on the woman, that's kind of really the two directions I wanted to go with that. Like I'm emphasizing women and I'm also talking about money. And capital really is like a huge factor in our economic, structure. And so that's really important is capital, having access to capital. I think a lot of women, especially Black women, don't have access to capital. And so I wanted to coin the term capital woman.
And can you break that down a little bit more too? Like, what does capital even mean?
Capital, just the word, like in the money world.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Capital is essentially money. So when you talk about like venture capitalists, those are people that have access to money, and it doesn't have to be physical money. It can be the digital money that we know, like a credit card, for an example. That is a resource that you can use for capital. So if I wanted to go buy a house and I didn't have the $200,000 that to pay for it with cash, I may go get a loan, right? Like that's an extension of credit. And so that is a capital resource that I could use to build wealth because now I may have equity in my home and then I could, borrow money against the equity in my home. And that is also capital. And so it's essentially money, but it's whatever money you have available. So the digital or the physical cash.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I was asking because some people really may not know what it means. And I know when I heard about it, like they're like build capital, but then I'm like, well, what's capital? So I just sometimes I'm just like, okay, I don't really know what that means, but you always learn and stuff like that. So I really liked how you connected that and went with it. And so I know one thing that you really talk about or you hone in on is like building credit as a millionaire. And that's so because I'm trying to be a millionaire by 30. But
yes, I love
but
that.
I liked how you broke it down when I said I seen you on the Instagram live and you were talking about the differences even between different credit scores and like how everybody's like go to creditcardkarma.com and check it, but you were like saying that sometimes that's not as I guess right, or like there's other ways that you can check it. So if you just want to I guess harp about that, like that a little bit.
Yeah, so I was describing the difference between the Vantage score and the FICO score. So the Vantage score is not widely used amongst like all the lenders. The FICO score is the one that is 90% utilized amongst all the mortgage lenders, the credit card companies, etc. So that's the one that you really want to focus on understanding and really using that as your benchmark to say like, okay, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm trying to go. And Credit Karma is essentially pulling your Vantage score. And so it's directionally correct. So it might be, 20 points off of what your FICO score is, but it'll still show you kind of the range that you might be in. So for an example, your Vantage might be like 640, but your FICO might be 620. So you're still in the 600s. You're not, super far off, just using your Vantage score. But to me personally, I want to know what is my actual score that they're going to be looking at when they pull it, right? So that's essentially what I was talking about, is making sure we know what our FICO score is. And also you can find your FICO score in a lot of different ways. A lot of times you get a free report every year, but the report doesn't show your FICO score. So a lot of banks are now offering your FICO score through their app or like online. And so you can look at it that way. And if you don't have it through your banking app, then you can use what's called Discover. So Discover allows you to create an account with them for free, and they'll show you your FICO score, and you can use it as many times as you want. So that's really a great tool to make sure you have access to your FICO score.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Do you have a tip of maybe what is a good FICO score, what they should be trying to achieve, or what they should have it at?
Yep. I think everybody's goal, especially in the Black community, should be a 750.
Okay.
And I say a 750 because that is essentially the golden number. Once you reach 750, you get pretty much the same benefit as somebody with like an 800 or an 850 credit score. So all the best interest rates in the market, any perks that you might receive, with a car lender or a mortgage lender, all of that will be achieved with the 750 credit score. So that's really the goal.
Okay, 750. Let me write that one down
Right.
so I can remember.
So, I guess my question would be, because obviously the FICO score is important, but for those who don't know, other than just paying your minimum payments, what else can you do in order to increase that FICO score if you have a low FICO score?
Yeah, really good question. So 35% of your FICO score is the on-time payments. So that one is really, really important. But a quick tip on that too. So we have a due date for each of our credit card payments, right? And if you pay before the due date, you're okay. Or even within 30 days of your due date, you're fine. What we should really be doing is paying whatever the payment you're going to make at the statement closing date, which is the date that the credit company is going to report everything to the credit bureaus. And you can find that on your statement balance or your statement through whatever credit card company it is. So you pull that and it'll have a closing date on it.
Oh, okay. And
does that make sense?
Yeah, kind
of. Just explain that one more time.
Yeah. Okay. So the closing date is basically the date that the credit company is deciding to report everything that you've done for that month to the credit bureau.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
So that date is different than your due date. And 9 times out of 10 is coming after your due date.
I didn't know that. That's a nice little thing to know. I didn't know that at all.
Yeah. So that helps a lot. If you make your payment before that closing date, then the report, when they give the report to the credit bureaus, then your credit balance will be lower that month, and that'll help with your utilization rate, which will then increase your credit score.
That makes a lot of sense because they do say make sure you pay your minimum payment before the actual due date for your credit card. So that puts a lot of things in perspective for me right now, because I'm just like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's why a lot of people say that. But
yep. So that's 35% of the score right there, which is a really, really big chunk. The next one would be the credit utilization. So what you want to make sure is to increase your score, it would be, it's always great to pay down debt, right? Like the whole point is to make sure you're not carrying over too much debt every single month. So you want to pay it down. But the other thing you can do to increase your utilization rate is ask for credit increases often. Because that gives you more credit it increases your credit limit essentially, which lowers your utilization rate, if that makes sense.
No, that does. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah, so if you ask for a credit increase every 3 to 6 months, that will essentially help improve your FICO score.
Okay, that makes sense. Because then it would be like they're
Yes.
giving you more money. So then that, since you have more money, then your utilization rate would go down, right? Did I explain? Okay.
Correct. Yes. And a lot of this is really like hard to explain without like a diagram or something to show. But essentially, yes. So for an example, if you had a credit card with a $500 limit, right? Like you cannot spend over $500, and you carry a $200 balance on it, and you're working on paying that down. So every month you're making a $25 payment, as an example. In 3 months, if you ask for them to increase your credit limit to $700, for an example, and you still have that $200 balance, or maybe you've been paying it down, so maybe it's like $100, that ratio is better if you do the math, like $100 over $700 versus $200 over $500. So that's essentially what that does for you, is it lowers your utilization rate. Now that's assuming that you don't spend that additional money. So if you ask for an increase and you continue to spend, up to that limit, then it doesn't help, with your utilization.
Exactly. Yeah. That's something I had to learn recently, because I had a Discover card for a while from prior to just being in school that was like 1K. And once they realized that I was like paying on time and just like aggressively paying it over, they were just like, okay, we're going to give her 5K. And so I had to be like, oh, I'm sorry. So I had to just like kind of realize that like just because they gave me more doesn't mean I should be spending more. Like I should still aggressively pay down the debt until I have none with that credit card.
Yes, and that's a good point, because a lot of credit cards companies, they will increase your limit like on their own, and they'll just tell you. They won't ask you. They're like, "Oh, we increased your limit by $5,000," and it's like, okay. But it's essentially helping you, as long as, like you said, you're not spending that additional money and you still focus on paying it down. So it's a really good thing.
Okay, I have a question with the money. I've been talking to like a lot of people, how we've been doing these interviews and different things like that. And I want to get your stance on having like separate bank accounts. Do you say yay, or like when it comes to budgeting and like the way you use your money, do you have like separate bank accounts, or are you just like, I put everything in one bank account and I just use it for everything?
That's a good question too. And I was actually just helping my sister with this, because her and her husband have essentially the same bank account, but it's with one bank. And so you know how like for Bank of America, or really any bank, you'll have like a checking, and then you have an option to have like a savings account. So if you have it all within one bank, it's 2 separate accounts technically, but it's a psychological factor, right? So every time I open my Bank of America app and I'm trying to save money, I see that savings balance right below my checking, and people toggle that money back and forth, right? Like whenever you need it, it's like, oh, let me just transfer over like $200 so I can make this purchase, and so I recommend having a whole separate bank and a separate account for your savings, and specifically your emergency savings account, because you don't really want to see that money until you really, really need it. Because if you see it, then you're enticing yourself to spend that in some way. So that's where the high yield savings account comes into play.
Yes.
Yeah, just to tie that in.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. So me personally, my emergency savings is in a high yield savings account, because really the whole point is the money to sit there and to grow. And so if my money is going to sit somewhere, I'd rather be earning, 1.3% versus what Bank of America offers, which is like 0.03%. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that adds up over time. And it's also in an online account, so that I don't really get to, go to the ATM and pull the money out. It's like literally just in this online account
Mm-hmm.
sitting there, and I don't see it, when I'm looking at my regular checkings account. So I have to like physically go into a whole nother app to look at that balance, just to check it. So I think that's really, really important. And having separate accounts in general is important. So having a savings account, having a checkings account, you can even have multiple savings account for
Yeah.
different things. So like a travel account, you can have just a like hot girl activities
Okay.
account,
Hot
um,
girl summer.
right, exactly. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, with this whole pandemic going on, it's a really, really good time to map out your finances and really understand what is going to be my style. How do I want, because it's such a personal thing. Like, it's called personal finance for a
Yeah.
reason. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so you really kind of have to try different things and just figure out what works for you. I don't want to manage like 5 different savings accounts, so I don't.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But you will hear other people, that are great with that. Like, they will have, a travel account, and they'll have like a clothing and shoes expense account. They'll have like all these different ones. And for me, it's just a little bit more complicated. So I rather keep it simple, have my emergency savings, and then just the regular savings for myself to do like travel and activities and just whatever. Um, but yeah, I think it's totally dependent on you, and you have to just try different things and see what works
Yeah.
best.
Sure.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, with your high yield savings account, I know you said that you can use that as an emergency fund, but you don't take that out as much. So, like, how does that work? So, like, if you need it, like, what do you do in that sense?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. And a lot of people get really nervous about that because they're like,
Yes.
yeah, it's like, I want to have access to my money, and especially if you're saving a significant amount. But it
Mm-hmm.
works very similarly as like your regular bank. So you would just transfer it over to whichever bank you want to, like, let's say for an example, I use Marcus by Goldman Sachs as my high yield
Okay.
savings account. And I have Bank of
Mhm.
America for my checking account. And let's say I wanted, to take out $2,000 for a trip or something. I would then link my Bank of America to my high yield savings account, and you can just transfer the money to that account. So it's just as easy as transferring it within the same bank. You just have to connect your regular checkings accounts to that high yield savings account.
Okay, that makes more sense. I see what you're saying now, because I was like, how am I gonna get it out there? But I do know, going back, it's like so quick and easy. Like, if you have the same
Yep.
bank, you're like, oh yeah, I just need $200. Like, let me just transfer this real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So I do see what you're saying, and I feel like I'm just now learning about high yield savings account. Like, I've had probably some of your favorite other budgeters and like money people. They've been on my podcast and they talked about it as well too. Shout out to the bougie budgeter and Sierra. I don't do budgets.
Yes.
They talked about that too, and I'm like, I never knew nothing about that or whatever. So like, now learning about that, and like, I just graduated college, and I also, like, I am still paying off debt. Oops, I haven't started yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be okay. But like, even learning like about that, because I do have a savings account and I have a checking account, but even knowing about like, oh, here's another savings account, or like, oh, you can separate your money here. Like, you might want to use this for the travel fund. Like, I know this lady, she's the type of person, she has a fund for every single thing. So that was funny how you
Mm-hmm.
said that. And like,
Mm-hmm.
she manages it and stuff. So I thought that was interesting. I wanted to ask, do you have any banks, like high yield saving bank
Just about to ask.
recommendations?
Yes. Yeah. I use Marcus by Goldman Sachs as my main high yield savings account for emergency savings.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So they're my recommendation to at least check out. I won't say that,
Okay.
everybody should go to that bank, but I think it's a great one to check out. They have an FAQ page. And I think that's a good place to start to get comfortable with the format, because sometimes with high yield savings accounts, you have to wait a 24-hour period because they're open for transfers Monday
Hmm.
through Friday. And so that's a caveat with some of the high yield accounts, is that you don't always have immediate access to the money, which is
Oh, okay.
yeah, which is why it's important to still have, like, if you have Bank of America, having a savings account with them, but keeping a smaller savings amount in that account so that you have easy access to. So I always keep like $1,000 in my Bank of America savings account, just in case, like I need immediate money and I need to go to the ATM or whatever. But all the other money that I save, I have in my markets account. So that's a good one. And then also, let me think. Ally Bank is a good one. That's Ally,Ally.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one. American Express has one as well. So those are two that I'm looking into right now. I'll probably open an Ally account because I get this question often. So I kind of want to like try out like 5 of them and just
Okay, yeah.
yeah, and just see what the experience is. Because I think customer service is also really important, when you open up any account. The user friendliness of like their app or their website, that's important. Marcus's app is really easy to use, so that's another plus with them. So yeah, I think those are really my top 3 recommendations.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to ask, like, within this money and the resources, I know, like, how you give me these banks and stuff like that. Was that YouTube, or like, do you go somewhere where you find these resources at, or is it YouTube for real?
For the bank, specifically for the high yield accounts, that was a Google search. If you literally
Okay.
type in, like high yield savings accounts, you'll find, what's the one? It's a website, Nerd Wallet.
Oh, I think I've heard of that before.
Yeah, NerdWallet literally breaks down like everything. They go and they do a ton of research, and they'll give you pros and cons of each account. They do like very, very thorough research, and they put it all like on their website. So if you Google like high yield savings accounts, there will be one of the first links that pops up. And so that's where I found my information. And then of course I went to each site myself and like read it just to validate everything. And I made my decision that way. And I actually, for me to be like a finance guru or whatever, I just opened my account last year. So it's never too late, y'all. I'm
It's
just saying.
Yes. Well, thank you. It makes me feel good.
Yeah, like listen, it's a journey, and I personally was like uncomfortable. Same with y'all. I'm like, how do I get my money? Like I don't want it to be like stuck somewhere, because it wasn't something that I was familiar with. So it took me some time, even after I learned about it, to like get used to the idea. So I definitely think it's a great step, but it's no rush on it. It's never too late. Like it's okay.
I'm cracking up. And so with that, so I know, like, talking about this generation, like millennials, like we want to pay off student debts, we want to also live our best life and stuff like that. How have you been able to, I guess, make your money work for you? Like, if you still want to go on that trip, if that's something that you want to do, but you also have to like pay a student loan debt. Like, how have you made your money work for you?
Side hustles are super important, and budgeting, honestly. Like side hustles are important because it's additional income. When you have additional income, that means that you can make additional payments to get to your goals faster. And so student loan debt is something that I feel like is going to linger for me for a while. So like I'm not like
You're not too worried.
yeah, I'm not too pressed about it. I still want to have a strategy, and I pay more than the minimum where I can. And I think right now is a really good time to make payments on student loans because all of it is going towards your principal. So there's no interest right now, I think through September. So that's really, really important to just go ahead and make the same payment you were making, if not more, because it'll hit a lot harder on that balance. So
That's crazy.
yes, is that's really important. So I would say budgeting and having side hustles. Another thing is investing and learning about different investment opportunities. And really educating yourself in that space because that's how you work smarter, not harder, and that's important.
Yes. Oh my goodness. What sorry, I was going to say, you brought up investing, and I was going to say, do you have any apps, I guess, to suggest for people to start investing
Mm-hmm.
in, or what they can look into?
Yes. So one of the things you really have to understand as like a foundation are the different types of investments, because I think people hear investments and they're thinking the stock market and they're thinking buying these different stocks within, like all the Fortune 500 companies and stuff like that. And that's a great way to earn money, but you have to be really, really educated on these companies to risk putting your money into them. So you kind of have to know what their profit and loss statement looks like. You need to know what their cash flow looks like. So it gets really like down this rabbit hole. So one of the things that I think is really good for beginners to invest are index funds. And if you want to learn about an index fund, I would legit like go to YouTube and type in index fund just so you have a basic understanding of it. And then you can do research on like who offers index funds and how you can basically start investing in them. But essentially, instead of buying one stock for one company, you're paying a price. Let's say the index fund is $25. You're paying for a bundle of different companies. So you kind of diversify within that one fund, which is much better than just paying for one stock, because if that company tanks, then your money tanks with it. But if I have an index fund that has, 50 different companies in it, if one company tanks, I'm still okay. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
that's kind of, without going too deep into it.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
yeah, that's the basic difference between the two. So that's another great way to earn investment income.
Okay, yeah, I feel like sometimes that is like so much going on like with money. And that's why I feel like sometimes people may even shy away from it, because it's
Yep.
like it's kind of can be so overwhelming. Like you don't even know what to do. You don't know where to start. So I definitely appreciate you for, coming on here and telling us different things, because I'm like, oh yeah, this. I'm like, oh goodness, this. Like I'd be like, let me write this down. Let
Yeah,
me go to
it's
YouTube,
a lot.
check it
And
out.
you're right. It's a whole lot. It can be very, very confusing, and I think that's purposely done too, to be honest with you. People think investing is for the white man, and that's how it's been for like years and years and years. And it's very important that we at least understand the basics. Another thing is real estate investing. That's definitely my biggest strategy right now, is investing in real estate. So I would encourage everybody to learn about different real estate investment strategies. It can be hands off, it can be hands on. But that is like one of the major keys of wealth.
Yes, definitely real estate. I have been looking in that too. I was going to get my real estate license too. Everything's going on now, but I definitely think
Oh,
real estate is a great thing to invest in as well. But yes, we'll
yes.
see when I get
It's a
it.
it's a great way to learn about, real estate in general. So I think that's a great
Mhm.
investment. And then you can earn really good money too, as an agent. So yeah, girl, I'm here for it.
Yeah. Yes, thanks. It's so funny too, because when I say, and I'm thinking about it now, like how we were talking about growing up and learning different things, which everybody's experience is different. But actually, like my parents, like they have property, but growing up, I wasn't like, oh, that's rental property, but it is rental property. So now it's like, okay, like they can teach me. I know what they can do, and so I can be able to take that knowledge and to even
Mm-hmm.
go further, because they have the knowledge of the real estate by having property. So I just thought that was so interesting. And then I'm like, okay, yeah, I want some real estate too. I want to get into real estate and here's some property. And sometimes I just feel
Yeah,
like
that's
some people
good.
don't know
Yep.
that they can do that. Are they, and yeah, they're not aware. And like, I think bringing access and like showing what people are like resources, I feel like is really, really important to be able to let everybody know like what's going on and how you can figure out what can work for you.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to your parents. That's great,
Yeah.
having, a direct connection, that you can go to ask questions and learn, because not everybody has that. So definitely soak up that
Mm-hmm.
knowledge, share it with your friends and stuff. Like that's how we create wealth for, the
Mm-hmm.
community. So that's a really, really good. I'm proud of them. Yes, girl.
Yeah, thanks. I know they've been actually they had it for a long time. And it's just so funny because I think I've never even told anybody that. And so like my friends, because I'm on the road to be a millionaire or whatever. And so I'm like, I want to do real estate. And they're like, oh, what? But like, what about real estate? And I'm like, well, my parents like they have a whole property like so I know about the real estate thing,
Yeah.
but I guess I just never shared or tell anybody. So I'm just like I like you like I know some about it. I know a lot about it. Like even with savings, even with money, the way that I grew up, it was different too. Because like I had a savings account when I was younger. Like I knew about savings and putting it back and different things like that. So I feel like, well, my parents was up front with money, but I don't feel like maybe everybody else's parent was up front with
Mm-hmm.
money as much. And so I feel like that can be like a barrier as well too. And I'm like, I could talk about money. Like that doesn't matter to me. Like I'm talking about money because I want some money, you know. But like some people shy away from it and they don't really know like how to have those conversations and stuff like that. So I think that it's just like really important. I'm just thinking like, what I don't. Why didn't I say this before? Like, what was this about?
Yeah, no,
So yeah, that was.
that's a good point. I think, it helps. Social media helps a lot, with getting
Mm-hmm,
information out there. And the more you surround yourself with people that are, along going on along on a certain journey, the better it'll be for you. Like when it comes to like personal finance, is like I not just myself, but the bougie budgeter, like you said, and there are so many other women in this space, like follow them. You know what I'm saying? So that you constantly
mm-hmm,
see the content and you constantly see what they're doing and how they're doing it, the information they put out, the education that's out there, because it sticks, a little bit at a time. So
mm-hmm,
that's why doing stuff like what you're doing right now with the podcast is also really important, because it'll stick. Something when somebody hears this, there's something that they'll learn from it and they'll stick with it. And it's,
mm-hmm,
little by little, we'll kind of get on board, because it is a lot. It is a lot to
mm-hmm.
master. So
Yeah, I feel like social media is really good. I know like people get like backlash and stuff for it or whatever, but I'm like, how I connect with people and how I talk to people, how I even learn this stuff is because of social media.
mm-hmm.
And if it wasn't for Instagram, for real, I wouldn't know nothing about this. I even been able to meet people. So I say to also use social media as a leverage and go find those people. How you're saying, like you can type in like build wealth, you can type in capital, and shoot, you might
Yeah.
even come up like the hashtags or something. Like you
Exactly.
can find it out there, and the resources are really out there and readily available. But also I think it's the part of the conversation too of like
Yeah. Yeah.
if you even know what's going on. So
Right.
um I definitely agree with that. Well, do you have any like I guess tips on personal finance or tips for anybody who may be wanting to even get into the finance world or want to do better with their finances? Do you have some tips or resources for them?
Yeah, so actually on my Instagram page, I have a link tree, and I have a free credit guide on there that you can download, and it'll kind of outline everything that we talked about. And I'm always a resource, via email, DMs. Like I make myself available to my community, because I think that's really important. And I also have on there basically how to survive a pandemic financially,
Mm-hmm.
as a guide on that link tree as well. So, and that has a lot of finance tips on there, just in this current time and like what you can be doing. Um, in
Mm-hmm.
general, though, I recommend everybody have a budget. And I don't mean like, just, oh, yeah, I know how much my bills are and I know how much I make, but like legit create a budget, because I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, you're going to learn so much about your own money that you never realized when you get to add all that stuff up and you're looking at it. I'm a huge fan of spreadsheets, but that's probably because I'm in finance. But
Yeah.
you can also download different budgeting apps. And they make it pretty easy for you to like, input all of your expenses and your income and like track on like what your budget is. So I recommend a budget as like the first step to start anything, because if you think about it, you can't really have a debt payoff strategy if you don't know how much
Mm-hmm.
extra money you have to put towards your debt.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I think people
Definitely.
like aimlessly start, putting money towards stuff, and it's like you don't really have a good enough understanding before you're like, okay, I'm gonna just pay $50 extra here. Okay, next month I'm gonna pay an extra 25. Like, you know what I mean? Like it kind of is not a good way to go about it. So you really need to have a budget. The second thing is when you do your budget, understanding what your discretionary income is versus your disposable. And
Yes.
yeah, I'm gonna break it down too, because this is
Yes.
the kind of stuff that they don't
No.
teach you, but it's so important. And that's why I was
Yes.
saying, like, in finance school, they're not breaking this kind of stuff down. Like, they're just not. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems really basic, but it's like really important. So disposable income is just the money after taxes are taken out of your gross income. So you'll hear a lot of people say, my disposable income is this, that, whatever. That doesn't mean anything because we don't know in relation to how many bills you have, like how much money you actually have.
Mm-hmm.
So if your rent is super high, your disposable income don't mean anything. Like so then you look at your discretionary, which takes into account the taxes plus all of your basic, living expenses, your essentials. So you'll take out your rent, any car payments, insurance payments, all your utilities, food, all of that. And that number that's left over is your discretionary income. And that number is so, 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 so important because that's the number that you use to determine how much money you have available to pay for extra debt, to go travel, to, buy clothes, buy shoes. You know what I'm saying? Like that is the number that you're working with every single month, essentially. Um,
Oh, okay. Sorry, can I ask this
yeah,
question? So disposable income, you're saying like that's what you get after you get your paycheck, and that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you have to spend,
correct.
correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so then say if I like make $2,000 or whatever, then I take my rent, my car insurance, everything like that, and then after that, say I have like 500 left over. So that 500 is really what I have, and that's my disposable. Well, that's my discretionary income to be able to use for
Correct.
whatever.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
And you will find that not a lot of people know what their discretionary income is on a monthly basis. They think, they're fine because of their disposable income. Like, oh, I make, $4,000 a month and my rent is only 1,600 or whatever. And, it's like, that's not the full story. You need to do the math on everything that you spend just to like live basically, like if
Mm-hmm.
you didn't go buy anything additional to survive, like what is that number, every single month so that so that's a huge driver. I recommend everybody do that and look for that number while they're doing their budget. um the other things are, like I was saying earlier, follow personal finance advocates and advisors and real estate agents and, wealth builders and all of the people that are ingrained in the personal finance space or just money in general. Because again, social media is good because you'll see those things on your page, you'll see the content, and it'll help you
Mm-hmm.
learn, because not everybody wants to sit and YouTube and Google personal finance
That's
tips like
true.
every other day.
So
You know what I'm
true.
saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
we're just not that interested, even myself. Like, I don't do that every single day. I get inspired by other people in the space, other people that I know are also on the same journey, like the debt-free journey. Dave Ramsey is a great person to follow because he posts debt-free accounts all the time. He's showing you and telling you these different tips and tricks and ways to live that better you, from a financial standpoint. So I would say surround yourself, around that because you become what you're around. So that's really important for me personally. And I always recommend that for people as a tip. And then lastly, I'll say another tip would be don't be afraid to YouTube and Google. When you have a question, when you want to know something, those resources are out there and you don't have to do it all the time. But it's just social media can only do so much. You'll still have to do your own
Mm-hmm.
research. But that's not to say too that like people on social media are creating webinars and different, live events like the credit one you were talking about that me and the bougie budgeter did earlier. So like you can get those gems from those places too. But use all the resources that we have available. Like they're there for a reason. So it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't hurt.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And I wanted to say thank you because that was really good. I was hoping that you talked about that, and I was like, okay, yes, she talked about it. So yes, to know the difference. So that was really good. My last question is, what is, I guess, one of your money goals that you might want to achieve by the end of the year?
Okay. So I have, let me think, how much credit card debt do I have? I have like $6,000 of credit card debt right now. And that's for some reasons that I won't go into right now. But
Whole nother podcast episode.
girl, yeah. So like, stuff just be happening, and then
Hot
all of
girl
a
like
sudden you got this debt. And it's just like, dang. But anyways, another thing about finance is it's such a journey. Like sometimes like you'll pay down your credit card debt and everything will be good for a few months, and then you'll end up, having to spend money on something else and utilize your credit card. So it's like a up and down thing. And I think that's a misconception too for people, is like, once you pay down all this debt, it has to be perfect for the rest of your life. And it's like, no, like you'll go through moments where you're back in debt, and then you'll pay it down, and then you'll get in some more debt. You know what I'm saying? Like when people get married.
Then you just shot me in the heart.
I'm sorry.
You just shot me. Thought I'd be done. I don't want no more debt. But I see
Yeah,
what you're
like,
saying.
when you get married, or whatever, you got to pay for the wedding, and you're not going to pay
Mm-hmm.
cash for that 9 times out of 10. So
That's
you're going to
true.
finance that. You're going
Mm-hmm.
to buy a house. You're not going to pay cash for your house. You're going to pay, so it's like you're always going to be more than likely in a situation where you're in debt. So anyways, back to your question. I have $6,000 of credit card debt that I'm actually working to pay down now. So my
Mm-hmm.
goal is to have it paid off by December of this year. So I'm on
Okay.
track, but I got to be really aggressive these next few
Yeah.
months and cut back on some
Mm-hmm.
other things, to make sure I can pay additional on my credit card debt, because I'm just ready for it to be like not there. It's one of those things that I feel like is just hanging
Yes.
over me. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's a goal. And then I also want to save another $5,000 for my next
okay.
investment property. So
Okay. Oh, so you do real estate right
yeah, so
now?
I had a condo I recently
Oh,
sold a couple months ago.
okay. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes. So I'm on the ground level now, trying to like scout and figure out, what the next
Mhm.
opportunity will be. Because like I was saying earlier, like real estate is one of the keys to wealth. So I'm trying to get in the game
Mm-hmm.
early,
Like a
learn some things.
Yes.
So I encourage everybody to do it. So yeah, those are my top two goals: is pay down debt and save some additional money for my
Mhm.
next property.
Okay, and you said that you sold your condo already, so now you're looking for another
Yep.
property, like just by the end of the
Yep.
year to
So
get,
I
or
rented out the condo for a year. I
mm-hmm.
originally bought the condo just to like live in it. And I wanted to rent it out later, like
Mm-hmm.
kind of renovate it
Mhm.
some and rent it out. But I ended up taking a job in a different city as the condo, and it was really stressful
Okay.
trying to manage it for that year without physically being in the city. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and sell the condo and start over so that I can like really be, physically present for it, because it's a huge risk to have a property and
Mhm.
not manage it well and not, make sure it's taken care of. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had a lot going on last year. So that was just a personal decision. But yeah, so I'm starting over with something else. And this time I think I want to do the flip.
Yes. Oh, yes. Flipping houses. I love
Mm-hmm.
that idea. I can't wait to get into it once I save enough money. So I definitely support.
Yes, let's do it, girl. Yeah, like I'm trying to find something
Yes.
for the low, like, and the neighborhood that I grew up in, the houses are like super cheap right now, and a lot of them haven't been renovated. And so I was like, okay, I can buy, a
Mhm.
$30,000 house, put some nice little
Mm-hmm.
touches on it, make sure everything is good,
Yeah.
and then I can resell it. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's a really
Mhm.
great way to build capital to, circle back around to that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so Yeah.
Yeah. You said you live in
Yes.
St. Louis, right? Yeah, I was on Facebook or whatever, and somebody or LinkedIn, and it was like the number one place to live is St. Louis. They said they got cheap rent. I said, "Oh, hold up, am I gonna have to come and move
Girl,
there,
don't do
relocate?"
it. Don't do it.
Oh well, it ain't for us. It ain't. You ain't feeling it. you, St.
It's a
Louis,
great place
it
to
ain't for us.
invest, I think. But I don't think to live. Like, it's still
Mm.
very segregated. It's a lot of like violence here. Yeah, it's like the top 5 most
Oh.
dangerous cities in America.
I didn't.
It's been that way for years too. So um yeah, so I don't recommend it.
Okay. I stayed there for a summer, but I was like,
Oh,
I stayed on Maryville University, like Chesterfield or something like that. Yeah, so I was up there, but I guess I was on the
okay.
opposite
Yeah.
side of
And I
really St. Louis, St.
misspoke too. Like, I don't live here
Louis.
now. My family is
That's what they
here.
say.
And I've been here because of like COVID-19
Oh,
and we can work remote. Um yeah, but I live in Minneapolis,
okay. I see what you're saying.
actually.
Oh my, oh my gosh. Well,
Yes.
I'm glad you're
Had to
safe in
go,
St. Louis.
girl. Had to
Everything's going up there.
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis. I've never really met anybody lived in Minneapolis, but isn't that where the Great Wall? Isn't the
It
Great Mall of
is.
America? Is that where it's at, right? Yeah. Okay. What? That is so cool. I didn't even know that. I don't even know the
Me
people that
neither,
lives in
girl. Like,
Minneapolis. But yeah. Uh, that
Target
is
is
so cool. Yeah.
headquartered in Minneapolis, and so I took a job with Target.
What's headquartered?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yep.
Target.
Yeah, me
Oh, I
neither.
never
It's
even
so
would have thought
crazy. They
about that.
came to Atlanta when I was staying in Atlanta,
It.
and I ended up at some event, and they were kind of like not recruiting
Mm-hmm.
Black talent, but they were like, let me tell you about Target, and kind of giving us the
Mm-hmm.
whole spiel. And I ended up meeting some people that I really liked, and I
Mm-hmm.
decided to take a job. They offered me a job. So yeah, I work in finance at Target.
Awesome.
What? That's cool. And Target be getting everything. I don't, but my friend, she works at Target, like the store or whatever, and I know that they were like closing some stores down and stuff like that. I wonder, like, in different places, do you feel like that could be because, like, well, they're headquartered
Yep.
in Minneapolis and everything that's going on, or do you feel like
Ooh,
that's just like
I've been
general?
talking to some coworkers about that. I think their response to this is heavily influenced by them being based in Minneapolis. I do stand by Target though. Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
they're really good about diversity and like, really giving Black people opportunity, or at least trying. I don't think they're there yet.
Well, can they tell them? Can you tell them
Yeah,
to email
girl, go
me?
ahead and send me your email and your resume. But
Yeah. Yes, I was
no,
like,
it's a really good company to
I'm
work for,
Target.
like, for sure. So I think that they
Okay.
probably would have said something very similar, even if it wasn't based out of Minneapolis. But I do think that they went as hard as they
Mm.
did to
Mm-hmm.
support because it is in Minneapolis. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I have like a quick
That's cool. You learn something
question
new every
just
day.
because you
Mm-hmm.
got me super excited about the flipping, and that's kind of what I want to do. Are you interested in like having different investment properties in different states? Just because in different states it is cheaper, but I understand also sometimes it could be hard to kind of just renovate a house in like a different state while still being in another place. So would you be interested in that or?
Yes, I think I am, because I realistically, I'm not going to always live in the same city as the best investment opportunities. You know what I'm saying? Like, Atlanta was a great market 5 years ago for
Mhm.
flipping. Right now, it's like not, because
Yep.
it's so saturated. So like, if I chose to live in
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta for the rest of my life, I would be at a standstill right now, with investing. So at that point, I would have to look at other cities across the country to say, okay, where else can I flip?
Mhm.
But I think it's really important to just get some knowledge first before you take that step.
Okay.
So right now, I want to have an investment property that is at least in an area I'm familiar with, or like I know somebody that lives around it, so they can, like, if I'm not there physically, they
Yep.
can check on it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm still learning and I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
just, go in the middle of
Yeah.
nowhere and just
Yep.
expect everything to be okay. Um, So yeah, I will say like the more
Yeah,
experience I
that's
get, the
true.
more I'm like, okay, I'm fine with like going to wherever and investing and figuring it out that way. And the other thing is you can hire property managers too.
Mm-hmm.
So that helps because they'll be like your eyes and ears
Mm-hmm.
and they can always relay the different messages to you. So you don't have to, be the first call
Yeah.
every time something goes wrong or happens. So I definitely would be interested in that. And I think that's kind of the goal. Like I want to have multiple properties all over the
Yeah.
country. Just cause like, why not,
Like you said, it's like another passive income that you can have. So the
Right.
more the merrier, right?
Exactly. And when we were talking about capital assets, assets are like a key to capital because you can liquidate
Mm.
and pull the money out and all of that. So that is also a huge factor in capital. Um, and I'm the capital woman. I gotta build it. I gotta live up to the name.
Yeah, you know. I'm cracking up. That's so funny. I definitely
Joy.
enjoyed you. Well, we definitely enjoyed you, but I did definitely enjoy you as well. And I want to thank you for coming on this episode and just literally just like pouring knowledge and helping us understand different things because I feel like it's really important, as I've been saying basically the whole time, and I'm like people don't really know too much, but if you can tell them where they can find you, to follow you, so they can get this knowledge, on
Yep.
a maybe daily or weekly basis, whenever
Thank
you
you
post.
ladies for having me. This was so much fun. I hope we can do it again soon. You can find me at The Capital Woman on Instagram. That's the only platform I'm on right now because I'm not good at multitasking. um,
Okay.
but yeah, I'm on Instagram all the time. I post, I interact with, whoever on my social. So let me know. I'm available.
Yeah. Yes, that's good that you you brought up a real great point too, because that's what I'm talking about. Like with your audience, your target audience, you know that they're on Instagram, and you
Mm-hmm.
can go full fledged on that one. They coming to you, they're talking to you, so you're not overwhelmed with Twitter, Facebook,
It's a
Pinterest,
lot,
they
girl.
come
It's a
out
new
TikTok.
one
It's
every
too
other
much.
year. I'm
Like
like,
I'm like, yeah. I'm like, Twitter, I can't get down with it. They be like, what I love Twitter. I'm like, yeah, well, Twitter don't work for me, but Instagram does work for me. Okay. Facebook work for me. They be talking about
Can be on
Pinterest and all that
everything
stuff. I'm
now.
like, now y'all
it's a
we can't manage all
lot.
those at the same
And I
time.
think once you get
It's
to a
too
point where you build a
much.
team, then we can talk about all these different
That's
platforms
so
and having other
true.
people manage them.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a one woman show and I can't be on every
Mm-hmm.
platform, doing every single thing. Now,
Yes.
Twitter, I have a personal Twitter page that I will not give out because I'm like,
That's
I'm a
understandable.
hot mess on there.
Yeah.
But
Twitter is for the
it's
team.
that for me is more right. Twitter is more entertainment for me
Yeah.
than anything. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's so funny. I'm cracking up. But yes, definitely if you want to come on again,
Yes.
we are always welcome. We might have to bring you back on for that real estate because it's a whole nother thing that I think that's really important. So yeah, and hopefully you enjoyed
thank you,
yourself and we'll
ladies.
just
I
keep
will
in
talk to you
contact.
soon.
And it has been brought to my attention that the episode is over. I know. But if you want to keep on following up with us and staying tuned for the next episode, make sure you follow us on Instagram at Millennial Thoughts Pod. And I want to leave you with this. Passion or purpose, profit or pain, I don't want my name to ever be in vain. A life full of purpose is the only thing that will remain the same. Millennial Thoughts.